How do you find it?
Very dull. It's quiet, but sometimes I feel I'm back in London.
Just so you know, we are recording now. So
yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. I'm gonna get started. Right. Okay. So. Right. Okay. So you've seen the standard warning message. Right. So what I was going to say, like I said, today the pitch is more to, but I'm trying to put an emphasis on security. So since there's only two of you, I suppose I can fine tune it slightly. Actually, let me just check something. One second. Right. Okay. Right. So what I tend to say to people is, because the thing is, I don't know how much you've both looked into it, but if you're going to buy a hardware wallet for your cryptocurrency, the starting price is about £50, and it then goes up to 100 and even 150 depending on what you're buying. So what I tend to say to people is, if your crypto investment is £100 or more, then it's worth investing in a in a hardware wallet. So that's my standard advice. If your investment is less than that, my mindset is you might as well keep it on the exchange, because okay, if something happens to it, you haven't really lost that much, and the difference in value is so close to the cost of a hardware wallet. You know, it's a minor loss. So that's why I put that message there. And one thing I wanted to emphasize is that there literally is no such thing as zero risk. So whether you keep your cryptocurrency on an exchange or keep it yourself, there's always going to be some kind of risk involved. The question is assessing that risk and weighing out the best way to protect yourself. But before I go into that side of things, and I'm slightly guided by the slides because they're slightly jumbled up, but you know, as you know from the previous meetings, I tend to just go with the flow. Right. So as a beginner, broadly speaking, the places you're going to look are Coinbase, Coinbase Pro, and Binance. There are other exchanges out there, but you know, these are what you might call, you know, these are the biggest ones. So generally speaking, especially if you're starting with a small investment, it's probably a good idea to start off with Coinbase or Binance. Are both of you familiar with these two exchanges, by the way?
No, I'm not. I don't know about Red Farm.
Right. Okay. So Coinbase is an American-run company, and they set themselves up to be user-friendly for the novice investor who doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency. It's easy to register, and it's easy to buy Bitcoin and a few other cryptocurrencies as well. When I first started, you could only buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and what's the other one? And Litecoin. But since then, three years ago, they've increased the number of coins that you can buy. But compared to other exchanges, relatively speaking, they only list a few of the altcoins. I don't know if you've come across the term altcoins yet.
No.
Right. Okay. So basically, the umbrella term for all digital currency is cryptocurrency. So every single one is called a cryptocurrency, but every cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin is referred to as an altcoin or alternative coin to Bitcoin. So if you hear the term altcoin, it's normally literally just ALT rather than saying alternative. They're talking about every cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin. But having said that, a lot of people don't refer to Ethereum as an altcoin because it's so well established, and you know, it's although it's not close to Bitcoin in terms of value, in terms of how deeply entrenched it is now, people don't really regard it as an altcoin anymore because of the amount of support that it has. And the third one on the list, so that's what Coinbase is. Coinbase Pro is the one that you would use once you're comfortable with the process of trading. So as you're an Academy member, you would be familiar with charts, and the layout for Coinbase Pro will be familiar to you. So you will see like the candles. And the advantage of Coinbase Pro is that you can determine what price you're going to pay. Obviously, that depends on how much Bitcoin is at the time, but it gives you the ability to do an order. So you say, for example, today Bitcoin is around $24,000. You might say, I don't really want to buy it at this price, but if the price goes down by 500 or 1,000, I'd be prepared to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. So you can do an order in there, and when the price hits that price, you can then buy that amount of Bitcoin. So it gives you a bit more flexibility. And the other good thing about it is, compared to Coinbase, which is the user-friendly beginner site, is Coinbase. Now, I'm slightly wary of giving misinformation because I literally don't use Coinbase anymore. But at the time when I used it, if you use Coinbase, there's two things. One, there used to be a 2% fee for every transaction that you did. And the second thing was you couldn't determine the price that Bitcoin was at that time. So for example, if you were to do a purchase of Bitcoin from Coinbase, you know how much the price fluctuates literally every second of the day. If you thought you were buying it for $24,000 and it suddenly shot up to $25,000 during the transaction, that's the price you would be paying for your Bitcoin. So you don't have any control over it. Obviously, you might get lucky and it goes down, but there's always the risk that you're going to end up paying more than you expected. So that's the difference between Coinbase and Coinbase Pro. So Coinbase, user-friendly, nice big bright buttons, easy to do, but expensive. Coinbase Pro, it's more focused for someone who understands how charts work and gives you the option of buying at a price that you think is more realistic for that period of time. Before I jump on, does anyone have any questions?
No, I'm okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, that's cool. Right. Okay. So, right, let me move on to the next charts. Right. Okay. So, as what I was saying before, that there's risk associated with everything you do, Bitcoin life, so, right. So if you're not using a hardware wallet, there's things that you need to consider if you're keeping your cryptocurrency on the exchange. So what you see in front of you is you've got something called Coinbase Custody. That doesn't apply to people like us. So Coinbase Custody, that is for the large institutions. So what's happened is that Coinbase has been working very closely with large organizations, and they now offer a custody service. And the reason for that is twofold. For a large, you probably see that now large institutions are getting into Bitcoin, partly because now they feel more comfortable, but also the infrastructure is now maturing and it's getting to a point where large institutions are able to offer services to their customers. So say, for example, you've got, I'm trying to think of the name of a company, like
JP Morgan.
JP Morgan, Grayscale, these companies, their customers have been pressurizing them to buy Bitcoin on their behalf for ages anyway. But because of the way that they're regulated, they couldn't get into the space until the crypto space was mature enough for them to be able to offer a service to their clients. So Coinbase now offers guaranteed custody for large organizations. So if you think about my hardware wallet, they have like the the massive corporate version, which might potentially be, for example, a giant safe, a giant room that's dug into the side of a mountain or something like that to give it ultimate security, that kind of thing, with lots of encryption and loads of firewalls to make sure that the Bitcoin is safe. And once they've achieved that level of protection, they can then offer that service to large institutions. So that's what Coinbase custody refers to. Now, what that means is, although these clients have security, technically the Bitcoin isn't theirs, in the sense that it's a little bit like having gold in a safety deposit box. It's your gold, but you can't easily access it. And if something was to happen to that gold, like say, you get like, armed robberies, these kind of things, although it's insured, it's, if, the insurance means that you would get something back if it was stolen. You don't have direct access to your gold. You don't have direct access to your Bitcoin. So that's what these custody services are. And on a lower level, for people like us, if we have our Bitcoin on Coinbase or sites like Binance, it's the same thing. They're the larger organizations, but if the unthinkable was to happen, you've lost access to your Bitcoin. So there's always a little bit of a risk. And the reason I've mentioned PayPal in here is it's probably going to expand, but they now offer a service for American customers where they can buy Bitcoin, but it stays within their ecosystem. So the example I've been using is a little bit like being able to buy a £10 Amazon voucher. You can use our Bitcoin as long as you keep it within the ecosystem. You can use our Bitcoin as long as you only use it for transactions with our clients that have a PayPal account. So I can imagine this being a service that's been integrated with eBay and things like that. Any questions at this point?
No.
Okay, right. Okay. I'm just checking in case anyone's trying to get in, because last time I missed it when people were trying to get in. Right, it doesn't look like it. Okay, right. So if I go to the next screen. By the way, if anyone has a question, feel free to jump in, because we can go at a fairly relaxed pace because it's just us. Right. Okay. So that's the cloud storage version of having Bitcoin. So if you're going to store the Bitcoin yourself, there's still going to be risks, but then it's a different kind of risk. So for example, so you've got online storage with the exchanges, and then you've got what are called software wallets, which is basically downloading an application and keeping your Bitcoin on your computer. And then you have the physical hardware wallet. Now, if you keep your Bitcoin on a computer, there's the risk of it getting lost, stolen, stolen, broken, etc. So if you're going to store it on your computer, you need to think about, how am I going to mitigate the risk? And just so you know, one of the things that people sometimes struggle to get their head around is, when you have a hardware wallet, the Bitcoin doesn't physically exist with you. When you have a hardware wallet, or when you have a software wallet, what you're getting is a key that gives you access to your Bitcoin, because your Bitcoin exists everywhere in the cloud, if you see what I mean. So that means that if you set up your software or hardware wallet correctly, even if you lose your computer, or even if your computer is stolen, or even if you lose your hardware wallet, there is a way to still get your Bitcoin, as long as you've done what's called backed up your keys, or what's called your, because you have a public key and you have a private key. So just to explain the difference, a public key is your Bitcoin address. So when you're sending Bitcoin to another person, there's a long code that's your public key. And there's no problem with making that public key, there's no problem with that being public. It's a bit like having an email address. You share your email address you share your public key, because that's what the address that people will send Bitcoin to if they're doing a transaction with you. But for you to unlock your Bitcoin in an emergency, etc., in order to prove that that Bitcoin belongs to you, you have to reveal your private key to your software wallet or to your hardware wallet. So that's the difference. Anyone got any questions over that?
Do you need the hardware wallet to transact on your Bitcoin, or on your any of your crypto?
Yeah. So the best way to think of your hardware wallet is it's cold storage. It's your Bitcoin that you're not going to be trading with. That's the one that you're putting away for retirement or for a large investment. You don't touch it. So, for example, the Bitcoin that I have on my cold wallet, I sometimes don't look at it for 3 months, 6 months. The way that I use it is, if I've been trading on an exchange for some time and I've been able to accumulate a certain amount of crypto, I say, okay, this amount of crypto, I'm not going to be trading it anymore. I've got the amount that I want to keep it safe now. So what I would do is I would grab my hardware wallet, and I think you've probably seen it before. So I would grab my hardware wallet, which is the ledger, and I would connect it. I don't know if you can see me. Have I got my camera on?
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, so I would connect it via USB to my computer. And once it's connected by USB, I then have the ledger software, which interfaces with this. I put in my password. So I do a password on the computer, and I do a key code on this, and then that unlocks it, and I can then see what cryptocurrency I've got on here. So it's quite a long-winded process to access it. Now, having said that, there are some people, some people don't want to have any of their Bitcoin on an exchange, and that there are various exchanges that integrate directly with your ledger. So theoretically, you could have this plugged in to your computer on a regular basis, and you could trade Bitcoin. I think those would be the decentralized exchanges. Well, yeah, those will be decentralized exchanges. They're not as well known. They're not quite as user friendly. I'm not speaking from experience because I haven't used them, but the point of a decentralized exchange is that your Bitcoin is actually with you, and you're doing a peer-to-peer transaction with whoever you're buying or selling with. So you're literally going direct to the customer. There's no middleman, i.e. there's no exchange in between. It's a direct transaction. And there are various decentralized exchanges that you can use with your ledger plugged in directly and using the software that comes with the ledger. Any questions about that, or?
That makes sense. I think the other question I have is, can you store more than just Bitcoin on a ledger? Can you store all types of crypto?
Yes. So I've got a couple of different types of cryptocurrencies on it. Now I have the cheap old version. So this one's about 50 quid, and it has limited storage. So at any one time, I can only have 4 cryptocurrencies on it. But remember what I said about it, it's not actually physically on it. All it is a key to access my cryptocurrency. So if I want to add an additional one and it's run out of space, I delete the software and then add the software for the other cryptocurrency, the other altcoin, and then I'm able to add some to it. So, at first it's a bit hard to get your head around that. So it doesn't physically exist on this. This is just if you imagine an old computer and limited hard drive, and you can only install Microsoft Word but not Excel, it's a bit like that. So when you uninstall Word, your files, you can access your files once you reinstall Word, if you see what I mean. It's not quite a perfect analogy because your Word documents don't live on here, but the way to interact with it is through here. I don't know if that's a good explanation or not.
Yeah, it's effectively just like a key, essentially. So I kind of get that.
Yeah, it's just the key to access it. Now, if you were to buy the newer version, which is this is the Ledger Nano S. The newer version is called the Ledger Nano X for Xavier. That one has larger storage, so you don't have to mess around uninstalling to get, you know, lots of cryptocurrencies. I think you can put 100 plus on it or something like that. I'm not sure how many, but you can check on their website. And the newer version also it's Bluetooth enabled as well. But as I said last time, I kind of like the fact that it's fiddly and hard to use, because what some people say is your larger amounts may be put on something like this. And if you want to have like a smaller amount that you transact with on a semi-regular basis, then you could have the newer version because it's easier to use and you can mess around with more cryptocurrencies on it. So yeah, so that's one of the things that people tend to say. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and this is kind of this is talking about the security side of things. So the reason I use this analogy is I don't know if either of you are aware, but Ledger Nano was actually hacked in summer this year.
No.
Yeah, they were hacked. Now, a lot of people were scared, but it doesn't mean that the hackers got access to people's cryptocurrency. What the hackers got access to was the customer database. So it would have had, used for marketing. So it would have had people's, sorry, one second. It would have had people's addresses, names, and potentially phone numbers. So there's been a lot of discussion about that, because although it happened in summer, it wasn't really made public until literally within the last week or so. And that's partly why the theme of today's discussion is the security side. So the reason I'm using this analogy is your wallet is safe. So what hackers tend to try to do, they try and find a vulnerability. So if they can't get to the wallet, they can try and get to the wallet through you. And the way that they would do it through you is once they've got your name, your address, your number, then what they tend to do is they contact you by phishing emails, trying to trick you to reveal the information that would give them access to your wallet. So remember I was talking about the private key.
Yes.
So if someone has your private key, even though you physically have your ledger, they could buy their own ledger, and because you've revealed your private key to them, they can access your Bitcoin like that. So the key is not the key is not to be tricked by people who are trying. It's a bit like with the banks, your bank will never ask you for your password. Ledger will never ask you for your private key. And just so you know, your private key is generally made up of 24 random words. So it might be, let me try and think of a word that's not on my one. So it might be like car, microphone. So it'd be like 24 random words. So if you were to buy another ledger and you key in your private key, you would immediately have access to your cryptocurrency. So you never want to reveal your private key to anyone, no matter what. And so that's basically what that is. So that's why I'm using the analogy of the keys, because depending on how much you're both into cars, in the old days, if someone wanted to steal your car, they could get your key, cut it, and steal your car that way. These days, because cars are electronically encrypted, even if they cut a key and are able to open your car door, they can't start the engine because it's all computerized. So what do? Thieves try to be innovative and find other ways to get to your car. And one of them, I don't know if you ever heard it on the news, but lots of people have the habit of having their keys in the hallway, and thieves would literally find some kind of device to push it through your letterbox and grab your key that way, and they've got your car. And I think that's probably also why, I don't know what it's like at the moment, but you would hear that thieves would resort to stealing cars in petrol stations as well, because, you know, they can't steal your car in the normal way, but if you're not paying attention, they'd find a way to grab your key when you're in a petrol station. You know, like say for example, you've got a passenger, you leave your keys in the ignition, your passenger's not paying attention, a thief quickly comes, grabs your car keys, and, you know, that's it. You know, so it's a cat and mouse, you know. So, you know, the more you innovate to protect what you've got, the more the thief is going to try and innovate and find clever ways to get their hands on your car, your cryptocurrency. Anyone got any questions over that? Or
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, okay. And the reason I had this picture is because earlier this year someone broke into my car, and through my mistake, you know, that's the thing. When it comes to cryptocurrency, more often than not, the weakest link in the chain is you as an individual, because we make mistakes. So it's important to have as many layers as possible. So that day, I think, I think I'd gone to Costco, didn't lock the car. You know, you're moving food back and forth, etc., and I didn't lock the car. But because I had a steering lock, you know, had the interest been there to steal my car, it just wasn't possible. So that's why I've got that picture there. You know, it's something I put up on Instagram some months ago. And this is just telling you about the different types of ledgers that I was saying earlier. So the Nano X, that's the Bluetooth version with bigger storage, and the smaller one is the basic one that I've got. It also comes in different colors now as well. So yeah. And talking about layers, this picture is showing an example of the private keys that someone might use. Now, you can store it in your head, you can write it down on paper, but then if you write it down on paper and it's right next to your Ledger Nano, then, well, it defeats the object. If it's in the same house, so, you know, you can think, okay, do I keep that in the same house, or do I have that written down and given to a relative? Is that relative trustworthy? Not necessarily in terms of honesty, but, you know, will they keep it somewhere safe? Or would you go to the next level? And you can see in the picture that you've got this steel credit card size thing, and it lets you punch in your private keys. So they tend to be fireproof. They're less likely to get damaged in a fire or water damaged. So you see, there's always different levels, you know, and the levels of security that you take can be determined by what makes you comfortable, or it may be determined by how much cryptocurrency you've got. So let's just say you've got 100 Bitcoin, you know, you're going to be prepared to, you know, do everything that needs to be done. Right. Okay. And just to give you an example, when I was talking about, you know, people panicking over Ledger being hacked, it happened, you know, it's, you know, I'm of a mindset, it's not if, but when. And these are examples of companies that have been, you know, had their databases breached, large organizations. So, you know, one of them even being Equifax, you know, so that should tell you something. So yeah, again, here's a couple of examples. Depending on how much Bitcoin you end up with, are you going to go to the extent of having a safe, or are you going to go to the extent of having a fireproof container? You know, there's so many options to consider. So yeah, so I put that there, as I said before. The weakest link in the chain isn't the dishonest hacker, is actually you. What precautions do you take? Do you, you know, when something happens, are you able to be calm and make rational decisions? Are you someone who's not going to be fooled by, you know, something that sounds really good, that, you know, there's so many ways that people can trick you into getting something from you, and not just in terms of Bitcoin, but, you know, bank accounts, etc. Right. So I think I mentioned this in the last meeting. When the price of Bitcoin goes up, that's when you get more scammers trying to find clever ways to relieve you of your Bitcoin. You get things like guaranteeing 1% a day, 5% a month, etc. Look at those with suspicion. If someone is holding your Bitcoin and saying they're going to guarantee you a certain return, that's not something I'm going to trust. So that's something to watch out for. And one thing that I've noticed is I keep seeing people offering the ability to mine Bitcoin. Now, in the early days, that was feasible. Yeah, what they tend to say is join our mining pool. So we put our resources together and we can mine Bitcoin together. They're not necessarily scams, but some of them may be scams, but sometimes it's a case of when you read the fine print, you don't get the return that you think you're going to get. So I'm of the mindset I'd rather do my own investing when it comes to Bitcoin. And as I said, I've mentioned user error already and government intervention. You do tend to get, sometimes governments try to intervene to create restrictions. And as I've said in previous meetings, it's, Russia, the United States, Venezuela, China. They've all tried various ways of controlling Bitcoin, and they literally haven't been successful in doing that. So they're having to adapt and, find a way to work with Bitcoin. And a perfect example with that would be the Libra.
But you've got only 1 minute left.
Oh, really? Oh, right. Okay. Oh, yeah. I didn't see that. Okay. Right. So do you want me to log in again, or do you want to? Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I'm free till 9 o'clock anyway, so I don't know about rest.
Yeah. Okay. Let me close it and come back in again then.
Okay.
Okay. Right.